You apply these three things, you will have a successful business. But it always, I cannot express this enough, it starts with you. There's too many leaders try to blame and pass it on to, oh well, so and so, oh well, so and so. No. Welcome back to the Move Podcast, everybody. Motivating others virtually every day. Thank you for joining me again. What a beautiful, blessed day we've been blessed with down here in sunny South Florida. Still is colder than what we would like. Woke up this morning, it was in the 30s again. Again, the days get up to like around 60 or so, but definitely colder than what we're used to down here. But definitely warmer than what it would be if we were still back home. So we're still blessed, and we can't take that for granted. But it is colder. You see people down here that definitely aren't used to it. People are in coveralls and stocking caps and mittens and all the things. You can tell who's been down here for a while versus who has not. So, but anyways, hope everybody's doing fantastic. Hope you're having a great week so far. I know we're almost through this week. We're almost through this first month of the year, but we got 336 more days to go in this wonderful year of 2026. So hopefully you guys are doing well, staying disciplined, take care of yourself, and take care of your families. And so let's get this thing started. Before I dive into the topic today, which is we're going to talk a little about leadership today, I wanted to kind of bounce back and reiterate the fact that we've got to get away from the TV, the news. We've got to get away from that garbage. It's just all negativity. It's doing nothing for you. It's okay to see it. It's okay to grasp what's going on or to try to figure out what is going on. Just don't roll around in it. Don't become engulfed. Don't do that to yourself. It's all negativity. It's gonna bring negative emotion. It could cause you to do things or say things that you shouldn't just because you're running off of emotion. And especially as you're trying to develop discipline, you're not, your mind, body, and spirit is probably not where it should be. Maybe it is by now, maybe it's not. But if it's not, then you don't have as much control over your thoughts and your actions. So you're just playing with fire at this point. So let's try to get away from that. Let's let the people that need to take care of that take care of that, and then let's do our role and develop ourselves each and every day and work on ourselves each and every day to build the empire for our families. So today's hot topic is leadership. So one of the things that I do for my regular job is I go and I help companies. So a company that maybe rolls out a policy and their team didn't respond well to it and they're losing money. I can come in and try to figure out where the gap was, where the miscommunication was. Was it the policy? Was it the rollout of the policy? Was it the execution of the policy? And I go help correct that. I also, another example would be if you were once a booming, profitable company, now all of a sudden the market's changed and now you can't seem to find your footing in the new market and you're struggling. I would go in, and I do go in and figure out and identify exactly what went wrong, what's going wrong, and what are some things that we can do to correct it and correct it immediately. And then I implement these things and I follow through with it. And so that's what I do. So I do a lot. I deal with business owners, CEOs, and board of executives. That's kind of my main. Those are the three job titles that I'm communicating with and dealing with on a regular basis. So that being said, I've been in leadership for about a decade now. Yeah, right around a decade, and coming up on a decade. I've seen a lot. I've seen things that go extremely well, and I've seen things that absolutely implode on themselves. I've done things very well, and I've done things that blew up in my face. And so, I've learned from experience. Sometimes I learned the hard way, and sometimes, I had awesome mentors to kind of help guide me and lead me through some things that otherwise I don't know that I would have figured out. So I collect all of these things and I implement it into my business I do today and consulting. And I get asked a lot, especially when I go meet with these people. Usually towards the end, I'll get asked, what are some what are the biggest things when it comes to leadership, in my opinion? And I get this question often. And so today I'm going to cover the top three most important things, in my opinion, when it comes to leadership. Now, this can translate to whether you're a leader in a company or whether you're an entrepreneur of your own company. This can go both ways. What are the three biggest things that I see that can drive leadership, or what is the biggest difference between a high quality leader versus a low quality leader? The first thing I'm going to mention to you guys is it starts with you. It starts with, you, the manager, you, the CEO, the owner. It starts with you. You have to have integrity. People will always see better than they hear, and they will see how you're acting, how you're behaving, how you're conducting yourself, how dedicated are you, what's your commitment level. They're going to notice all of these things, and you can speak all day long till you're blue in the face, but if your actions don't follow up with your words, you're never going to hit home. And so anytime you're talking about leadership or of any type, it always starts at the top. It starts with you. And what type of person are you? What do you bring to the table day in and day out? How committed are you? Does your team see your commitment? And if you're an entrepreneur and maybe you don't really have employees, but your customers or your vendors are going to see your commitment. How quickly do you respond to calls? How quickly do you respond to emails? How quickly do you address issues? And people are going to see that. And lip service can get you to a certain point, but you're going to get to a point where there is no lip service. And so let's make sure, if you're in leadership or you own a company, remember it always starts with you. If your team sucks, it's because you suck. If your business is struggling, it's because you are struggling. I mean, it always starts with you. It always starts at the top. Always. Always has, and it always will. It'll never change. So always understand you. It starts with you. You set the precedent in your company, in your organization, for your team, whatever the case may be, it always starts with you. The second biggest thing that I feel is you have to have compassion. Your people need to understand that you believe in them, that you care about them. They're not just a dollar sign. They're not just a number. Um, and a part of that is, you have to listen to your people. We used to do a thing called one-on-ones. You have to do a one-on-one every month with each employee when I was at Schwann's. So I'd pull a driver in my office and I'd have a one-on-one. We'd go over the corporate stuff, which is the numbers. This is where you're at. This is where you're trending. This is where you've improved. This is where we've digressed a little bit. And, you'd go through that whole spiel. But then the second piece of that is, how are you doing? How's your family? Where's your head at? Do you have any concerns? How do you feel like I'm doing? Is there something I could be doing better? These are all, you have to have that open door communication. You have to have compassion, but you have to genuinely listen. And if they're addressing or expressing concerns to you, you need to listen. And as a leader, you need to be able to take some stuff on the chin. Maybe somebody doesn't like the way you lead. Maybe somebody just doesn't like your style. Maybe somebody doesn't like your comments. But you as a leader can't get defensive or think, this person's weak or this person's just not for me. You need to make sure you have the compassion for your people and they see the compassion. They don't just hear it, they see it. An example is I had a Schwann's driver, excellent employee, would show up early every day. Actually used to bring me coffee and stuff, but he was a fantastic employee, but he had some anxiety, and he was in a sales position, and sometimes those two don't mesh, as I'm sure you guys would probably have guessed. But there was a stop, and he was just flat out scared. It was in a shady part of town. With the whole situation was a very shady situation, and I told him, I said, "Call me when the stop is coming up. I'll meet you over here." And so I had to do my office stuff. I had meetings and stuff. And so he called me and I left the office, got in my pickup truck, drove where the stop was. And I did it with him to make sure, he was safe. The situation was real. It wasn't fake. It wasn't a fraud. It wasn't a scam. He wasn't being set up to get robbed or anything like that. And I made sure that the situation remained safe for his well-being because I owed that to him. And another situation with the same employee was, he wanted to sign up this group stop, and was struggling on closing on the deal. And he had some nerves and stuff. And so I told him again, hey, call me when you get to this point in your day. I will drive my pickup truck to you and we'll go in together and we'll see what we can't do. That's exactly what he did. He called me. I went over there and we signed them all up. But it was my job to him to, that's what I owed him because I genuinely cared. I wanted him to be as successful as he could possibly be because of his success meant my success. So if he won, I won. And at the end of the day, he needed to take care of his self and his things. And so it was my job to make sure he could do that. I hired him specifically because I believed in him. And I promised all my people when I hired him, I'm going to put just as much in as you do. I'll meet you in the middle. And that's just, you got to fulfill your role there. You have to have compassion. Your people have to see you actually genuinely care. And you can't just say you care, say, yeah, you guys are everything to me, and then turn around and leave your people out to dry. You got to follow through with that day in and day out. And it sucks sometimes. Trust me, it sucks. But you have to prove it to your team. Your team has to see it, right? So we understand it starts with you. We understand we have compassion. We have to listen to our people. So what's that third and final thing? To me, in my opinion, you have to be some kind of inspiration. You have to be able to at least motivate your people. But if you don't have integrity and you don't have compassion, this one's out the window because your people aren't going to respect anything that you're doing or anything that you're saying. So you have to have the first two to get to this one. Now, this one might be the most important piece because this piece is going to drive the bottom number, that bottom line number. How can you motivate people? But without the top two, like I had said, you're not going to have this one. So it doesn't matter. That's why I put it number 3. But you have to be some kind of inspiration to your people. Your people have to be motivated by you. You need to be able to speak to your people, talk to your people. And again, if you're an entrepreneur, you don't have necessarily people, so to say. Your vendors need to see your vision and believe in your vision. Your customers need to see your vision and believe in your vision. They need to get on board and support it. Like, yeah, this man's on to something. This guy's on to something. I really like that. This guy's going places. I want to be a part of this. And so you have to be some kind of inspiration. You have to. And it's not always about giving the rah-rah speech. It's about, being a good human being and being a good manager, a good boss, if that's what you want to call it, a good owner, to the point to where when your people or your customers are up against the wall and say, do you want to leave to go here or do you want to stay? They want to stay because of you. When it comes to, do you want to cut this corner or not cut this corner, they'll never cut a corner because they don't want to disrespect you like that. They would never want to let you down and have to have that face-to-face conversation with you and look you in the eyes after they let you down because they respect you so much. That you want to get to that point, and that's part of being able to be inspirational and be motivating. Your people have to have this just underlying deep mad respect for you to the point to where they won't do you dirty. They won't cross you the wrong way. They're not going to cut a short corner for you, against you, behind your back. They're always going to do what's right when nobody's watching because the level of respect that they have for you. Now, this stuff takes time. It takes time to build it. I remember, and I've mentioned it on this podcast, the first day I walked into my depot and I had a whole team. And I was one of the youngest people in the room, if not the youngest person in the room. And I'm the new guy in town. I'm the new sheriff in town. And I was so excited. I finally punched my ticket. I had made it. I'm a general manager. I got my humble pie, my reality that first week. And by the end of the week, I was questioning whether I was in over my head, if I'd made the right decision, if I'd screwed up, if I just screwed my family over because now we're moving up here and I don't know if this is going to work. I quickly got humbled that it's not just a job title. Now, I'm a very prideful person. I'm a very competitive person. So when I do something, I want to do it to the best of my ability and I want to be the best at it. And so when I took that role, I wanted my depot to be number 1 across everything. PMI compliance with the fleet, sales with the team, inventory with the warehouse staff. I wanted everything across the board to be number 1. To get to that point, to guide my team to that point, it took months. It took me about, I say months, it took me about a year to really find the right pieces to the puzzle, to get them trained, plug them in. The people that were currently there to kind of get them to believe in me, believe in what I was trying to accomplish, and to get on board with what I was trying to accomplish and put in the work that I was asking them to put in. And a part of that was, I had to meet some people in the middle. My warehouse staff, they worked nights. And I remember my warehouse guy that was there, he'd been there for like 14 years. So he'd been with the company longer than I'd even been with the company. Here I am walking in, his boss. I'm half his age. I'm going to tell him how to do his job. Obviously, as you can guess, that probably is not going to go very well. So I chose not to do that. Instead, I worked with this guy for 2 straight weeks, overnights. And I didn't criticize him once. I did everything the exact same, the way he wanted it done. So how do you do this? You show me, you teach me everything you know. And I just listened and participated. And at the end of it, I said, okay, I've been doing it for 2 weeks this way. Let's try 1 week my way. And I went at it again for another week and implemented the things that I thought were necessary to try to help correct some of the things and the gaps that we had. But because I did it for 2 weeks his way without complaining, without saying a word, without criticizing, he was open and was like, yeah, okay, if that's what you're the boss, if that's what you, but I earned his respect. And so we went in and we'd implement things and we'd, sometimes they would work, sometimes they wouldn't. And that's the second piece. Just because this is more for field leaders than it is for executive leaders. Just because somebody rolls something out doesn't mean it works, but it is your job as the leader to be able to identify this is what's working and this isn't what's not working. Anytime something specifically in the warehouse would change, they'd want it done this way, or now we need to do it this way. I would have a sit down meeting. I'd explain it to them. So this is what needs to be done from going forward. This is the reason why. But I want to monitor this. If something is not, this is the reason why they're doing it. If this is not what we're getting out of it, I need to know. If this is, an example would be they want us to start implementing our inventory shortages this way, because when we do it this way, we get reimbursed this way, and if we don't do it the other way, the system won't recognize it and we won't get the reimbursement. It's lost money. Just an example. But let me know if that doesn't work, because if we're doing the inventory changes here to get the money credit, but it's actually not reflecting in the system, and our inventory is off in the system, I need to know if these two systems aren't communicating. We're not going to do things will make your job twice as hard. And that's just an example. And that's a real example. That's something that happened. It's not, oh, well, that's just what the company said. So I guess if it's not working there, you have to do twice the work. No, that's not what the company's after. The company's not trying to make somebody do twice the work. The company is after an efficient system that reflects in our system and also gets us the money credit back. And if those two systems aren't communicating, they need to know so we can get something corrected. But some leaders would just say, oh, I don't know, that's just what they want you to do. Sorry, put up with it. I don't know what to tell you. And I'm a leader that's going to stand up. And I'll get a hold of VP. I don't care. And, my team would tell you that I didn't care. If something was wrong, I'd get a hold of whoever I needed to get a hold of. Let them know that, hey, this is garbage. This isn't working. We're not going to be doing it this way. We need to get something fixed. But that's part of being a leader. You got to have your team's back. If I had a fourth thing, that would be the second. That would be the last thing is, you got to have your team's back. They need to see that you have their back when they're not in the room. And, I'd be on these calls, and I'd always call all my employees out by names. A lot of managers, especially at Schwann's, they would always just say the route number. Yeah, this route's killing it. This route's killing it. No, the route's not killing it. Whoever's on the route, who is that person? They're the ones killing it. They're the ones putting in the work. They're the ones putting in the hours. Let's give them the credit. I never agreed with calling somebody by a number. I always my whole zone knew my team, because I used to call my people out by, oh yeah, that was so and so. Yeah, that was so and so. And by the a few months in, people would automatically know. They would see the sales numbers come across. They'd see the route number. They would know the name of the person on that route number, even though they'd never been to my depot, never met them, had no idea what they even looked like. They knew their name because I was always on the call calling them out by name. And then when promotion opportunities would come, I could be getting a phone call from my boss saying, hey, so and so, you're always talking about them on our calls. Do they want to promote? Is leadership something that they're into? And then, that's how you get your people promoted. And that's how you grow people. But you have to stand up for rooms that they're not in. And that's a huge piece. And it's a piece that they don't really see. Your team is not going to see that. And if you're an entrepreneur and you don't really have employees, your customers aren't going to see that you stand up for them in rooms that they're not in. When you're still driving their business as they're driving your business, it's a two-way street. You speak highly of them, they speak highly of you. You get stuff from them that you don't realize, they get stuff from you that they don't realize, and it's just a two-way street. So it applies to both. It applies to, whether you have just employees or whether you have a small company. It doesn't matter. It applies across the board. All four of these things. I said top three. I ended up doing four. Go figure. That's right up Steve's alley, right? But I could honestly give you a list of top 50 if I had time. But all four of these things starts with you. You got to have the integrity to even do it. You got to have the compassion. You got to listen. You got to be inspirational. You have to be able to motivate, right? Those are the top three things, and those are the three things that will help drive a successful team, no matter what industry you're in, what company, what organization, what company you're running, own, operate, whatever the case may be. You apply these three things, you will have a successful business. But it always, I cannot express this enough. It starts with you. There's too many leaders try to blame and pass it on to, oh well, so and so. Oh well, so and so. No, that's you. That's your problem. That is your fault. You need to fix that. And so let's make sure if you're in any type of leadership, any type of ownership position, be real with yourself. Eat some humble pie. It's okay. You're not bigger than the organization. You're just one person, and you've been blessed to be in the position that you're in. Maybe you worked your tail off for it, but either way, you're blessed. Don't ever forget that. And that was one of the things, when I was in the management, I used to always remind myself, it's like, anytime I start getting overwhelmed or I get stressed, like, man, I don't know. I remind myself, I prayed for this. I asked for this. When I was younger, people wouldn't give me these opportunities. And so I can't complain. I can't pout. I can't moan and groan about this. This is what I've wanted. And somebody finally gave me an opportunity. Somebody finally believed in me. And here I am complaining because it's stressful. Of course it's stressful. You knew it was going to be stressful when you got into it. We can't complain about that now. And so I used to tell myself that often when things would start seeming insurmountable, things would, like, man, I don't know. Like, you know what? Yeah, you do know. Yeah, you do got this because you prayed for this. You've wanted this for your whole life, and you finally have somebody believing in you. So you're going to put your best foot forward because that's what's required. And you go out and you just knock it out. And I would just do that over and over and over. And I never lost sight of that. I never lost sight, and I still to this day don't lose sight of that. Now I'm a business owner, I'm an entrepreneur, and I remember that feeling of just working my tail off and not making enough money, not feeling valued, um, and not with no direction, with no, like, I don't even know what I can do. I remember that feeling of just like, man, I'm not making the money I want to make. I'm not making the money I feel like I could make. I'm not being valued the way I feel like I should be valued. I'm not even doing, like, my intelligence level is so much higher than what I'm doing, but I don't even know where to begin to find work where I can make more money and work for a company that sees my value. And I was just lost. I remember that feeling. And so when life seems hard or life seems stressful or the grind seems insurmountable, I remind myself, hey, at one time, you prayed for this stuff. So don't complain now. Just, God blessed me and he has blessed my family. And I can't take that for granted. And I can't complain about that now when I prayed for things like this. And if it was easy, everybody would do it. And I also tell myself that if it was easy, everybody would do it. Everybody wants to win, but not everybody's willing to put in the work that it takes to win. I don't know who said that quote. I've heard that quote years ago, and it's just always stuck with me. Everybody wants to win, but not everybody wants to put in the work that it takes to win. And I remind myself of that as well. So there's just little things like that to keep that first thing you going. And because it gets hard, most people that's listening, that, if you're in any kind of leadership position or ownership role, you know what I'm talking about. It gets hard. There's some tough decisions that have to be made. There's tough conversations that have to be had. There's long days, long nights, short sleep cycles. There's all these things, and especially in the beginning. And you've got to just get through the storm, weather the storm. And I promise you focus on these three things, your life will become much easier. You're going to have higher retention. You're going to have higher results. You're going to yield a higher profit margin. Your culture is going to be set. You're going to have a positive, motivated, inspiring work culture. And that's going to drive results day in and day out, week in and week out. The money that you have to make, you're going to exceed. The budget that your boss sets for you, you will exceed. All these things if you just focus on these three things, I promise you. So anyways, thanks for listening this week. I appreciate you guys listening to the Move podcast, motivating others virtually every day. Hopefully you enjoyed the leadership segment. Leadership is one of my biggest passions. I could literally give speeches every day on leadership. Leadership changed my life. I had some leaders come in that completely changed the direction of my trajectory, my entire career. So it's something I don't take lightly. I learned, I would say early on, but early on in the change and me changing, I learned that how inspirational and how impactful a quality high level leader can be, but how few quality high level leaders that we actually have. And that's sad. We have a lot of people in leadership positions that do not belong in leadership positions, and that's just a damn shame. But if you can get a high quality leader, someone that genuinely cares and helps you and believes in you and invests some time into you, and it'll propel you to the next level. You'll never forget it, and you'll always feel like you're in debt to that person, whoever did it. No matter what you do in your life, you'll always feel like you owe them something for believing in you and kickstarting. So for those of you that have had those leaders, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Leadership is such an important piece. And I think some people just fall in love with the job title and fall out of love with the work that needs to be put in because of the job title. And so, anyways, stay disciplined. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. And God bless. Thank you, guys.